Hello everyone, I hope you enjoy this story. I call it Echo into Madness. Our story begins in Queens, New York in 1955. A very well known and respected private eye entrepreneur, Vincent Von Green, has just taken on a new case. Little did he know it was about to take a very powerful supernatural turn. Vince, a decorated war hero who had just served his country in World War II, trained in every form of combat as well as the ability to resist interrogation, did not believe in supernatural. He believed in making your own luck. Well, one fateful night, he investigated this old, creaky, strange mansion. This night, ironically, was October 13th, Friday the 13th. As he looked out on that incredibly stormy day, with the clouds as gray as he had ever seen, he said to himself, I'll never forget this day or the weather associated with it. With that being said, he took on this case like any other. Boy, he thought it was going to be routine. He was wrong. Way, way wrong. As he approached the house that stormy night, he noticed that even the concrete walkway, would crack and creak with every single step. He got on the porch. It was even worse. The old, at least century-old planks, as he walked in the house, almost moaned as his weight sat upon them. He walked in. He looked around the seemingly harmless house. This investigation he started because this house was at the epicenter of all these strange things happening in his neighborhood, once again in Queens. Everything you can think of as it relates to, let's say, criminal mischief, strange noises coming from the house, uh, strange noises around town, and as near as anybody could figure, this house was the starting point, the origin. As far as the nature of the crimes, vandalism, um, windows being broken, strange noises waking up neighbors at night, the sounds of children knocking on windows, laughing. People would look outside and realize that there was nobody there. Just the haunting sound of their laughter as it began to disturb the neighbors in ways they couldn't even imagine or even want to conceive. These spirits, having run amok in his beloved neighborhood, Vincent, or Vince, either one, could not stand this anymore. As stated before, these so-called spirits, which he did not believe in, were allegedly responsible for vandalism, disturbing the peace, uh, smashing into cars, you name it, anything that little kids or adolescents, if you will, are generally accused of. After doing some investigation as he stood there that night, he began to recall that this old mansion was actually a former foster home for troubled youngsters. And maybe he thought that it was just people trying to create bad images for every lost soul that was ever in that place. He just thought, well, maybe that's bad PR that people were just spewing. Like, they just didn't want to take it anymore. But as he stood there that night, with the wind pounding against that old house, the the thunder crackling in the sky, as if God were bowling 10 pins or something, the lightning that truly lit up the night sky with an unbelievably dazzling light show. He didn't know what was harder to believe, the weather this night or the haunting stories that plagued this old structure. Vincent finally steps in, walking through this crackling house. He could still hear everything that was going on outside. The wind, he thought, was the most impressive thing. The wind, as it pounded against that old house with an undying ghostly howl. He said to himself, what have I stepped into? He couldn't believe it. All at once, Vince could hear noises, laughing, carrying on. Children, but no one was around. Who's there? He asked. Laughter was all he heard. And then, once again, all at once, he heard them call his name. They said, Vince, Vince, can you help us? The stories you heard about all of us, it's not true. We're not vandals. We're not evil. We never left this world. We never crossed over into the light. Because we have something we have to tell the world. And we want you to look into it for us. To listen to us. Because you are the only one who investigated and will listen to us. Now, Vince, at this point, began to believe in the supernatural because he had no choice. He knew what he heard. A rational man that he was, he knew he wasn't imagining things. Without any other option, Vince began to listen to the children as they told an amazingly detailed story. Heartbreaking though it was, Vince, or Vincent, compelled himself to listen. It turns out that the children that were left in this former foster home were brutally murdered by this evil corporation run by a family of billionaires. The murders happened when the orphanage was caught ablaze. That's right, set on fire to quote unquote cut corporate losses. These children were not guilty of anything. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Padloff family, as they were known, were billionaires in the field of real estate. They had built their business in Queens, but as Vincent learned, they were actually crooked. As stated before, they had actually burned down that mansion slash foster home to cut their losses. They didn't care about the children, they just cared about the money. After knowing the children were completely innocent, Vince took a new plan of action. After looking into it, he began to realize that there were flawed financial records, flawed property records, I should say, flawed birth certificates that nobody bothered to look into because this family owned this section of Queens. So what happened was that they were all this family, this evil family, bloodthirsty family, were actually kingpins in this section of Queens. The mafia, if you will. Now, with that being said, he realized that all the records were either fudged and or faked, and he set out to arrest the head of this evil mafia crime syndicate. Unbelievable turn of events, though it was. He knew he had a sworn oath and the duty to do his job, and so he did. A week later, on Friday the 20th, he wore a wire that he placed himself, and he began to talk to this evil crime syndicate, these Russians. Unbelievable what they have done. The tastelessness, the violence. It was a miracle that this foster home slash mansion somehow survived this incredibly blazing fire. They must have used untold Molotov cocktails. Tucking his shirt in and adjusting his fedora, he approached the main boss and he chit-chatted with him, wearing a wire the whole time, and he gained his trust and gained his trust. And before he knew it, it seemed though the two gentlemen were friends, even though obviously they weren't, being on opposing sides of the law. This connection was first established between the two gentlemen because they had saw each other unknowingly at a restaurant which served the area's, if I must say, best Italian food. They had made a quick acquaintance there, about a month ago, and therefore both gentlemen were somewhat familiar with each other. Back to October 20th. After about half an hour of chit-chatting with his thought to be friend, Vincent got him his so-called friend to incriminate himself, and all at once, Vincent grew an incredible smile, and this crime syndicate leader knew he was done. Vincent von Green had his man, this mafia crime syndicate, the head of which is now behind bars, and this great mystery of this incredibly eerie, some would say evil mansion was finally solved. And it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that this mansion was the most innocent part of the story. Was not evil at all. Not evil at all. If you'd like to hear more stories, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.